Hi, my name is Cara Fontenot of the Fontenot Firm, and I wanted to do just a series of videos just to explain to people what wage theft is and why we have to be so vigilant to make sure that employers are properly paying their employees for the hours that they work. A lot of times people call our office because they believe that they have been discriminated against or that they know that something's sort of not right with the way their employer is operating. And oftentimes we may not have a claim for discrimination, but there might be a little problem with their wages. And people don't often call us about their wages when that's really the biggest thing that their employer has done wrong. And so I wanted to do a couple videos just to kind of explain what wage theft is, to give you guys an understanding of what the Fair Labor Standards Act does, which is the law that helps us combat wage theft, and how you can tell if you are a person who's been the victim of wage theft. So for this first video, I just really want to explain what it is that wage theft is and how it can affect you. Okay, so wage theft happens in three primary ways. One is that they take your hours and don't actually give you credit for the hours that you work. Let's say you came to work, worked 8 to 5, worked through lunch, and so it was 9 hours and they don't want to pay you overtime, so they deduct time that you actually worked from your pay. So you might have punched in and punched out appropriately and accurately recorded your time, but someone came in later and either edited your punches or just made a decision not to pay you for the hours. And sometimes people will say, a lot of times people will say, we didn't ask you to work through lunch, so we're not going to pay you. Well, that's actually illegal. So the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is the law that Congress passed, it's legal in all 50 states, that an employer has to pay you, if you're a non-exempt employee, for all the hours that you work, whether they approved it in advance or not. If they didn't approve you working overtime, they have to pay you that overtime, but they can discipline you for disobeying their order about not working overtime. So, but the bottom line is, no matter what, if you work the hours and you're a non-exempt employee, they have to pay you the time. So the first real reason why, or the first way an employer will violate the Fair Labor Standards Act and commit wage theft is by deducting pay from, deducting hours from legally worked time. The second way that an employer might do that and conduct wage theft is to make deductions from your paycheck that lower your pay below minimum wage. So this happens a lot with people who work in convenience stores or work in companies that don't pay them very much over minimum wage or do pay them minimum wage. And so they may say, hey, you ruined this meal, so I'm going to deduct it from your wages. You have to pay me back. Or if you're a server, someone skips on the check and it's a couple $100 and they take that away from your pay. An employer does have the right to make some deductions from your pay, but they can't do it if the amount that they would deduct would take you below minimum wage. So if you're right in the line, if you're close to $7.25 an hour in Alabama, and they deduct your pay for any reason, it's probably going to take you below minimum wage, and you've been the victim of wage theft. So they can also, and some people will also do this, is just pay people less than minimum wage. They may, sometimes people will say, well, you're not really my employee. I'll pay you X amount of dollars to do this job, but you have to come to work at their place. They still provide you all the tools. You look like you work for them. Maybe you're wearing your shirt, but they've decided to call you a 1099 employee and they want to pay you, say, $20 to work all day, or they may want to pay you, under the table in cash. But when you look at how many hours you work and you divide that by 725, it doesn't work out to you actually getting minimum wage. And that's one of the ways that people kind of get messed up a lot with the with wage theft, is because they have decided as an employer that you are not an employee. That is not a decision that an employer gets to make, whether someone is an employee or not, except for that the employer can set up systems where a person is actually an independent contractor. Okay. So if an employee works for the company, has a set time, does not offer those services to other people, and is being paid to work in something that's very integrated into the employer's business, it's not likely that the employer can just make a choice that this person is going to be paid 1099 and then get around the minimum wage. And so a lot of times, especially smaller businesses, may try to get around the Fair Labor Standards Act by calling people a independent contractor, but that is not the end of the story. You have to dig a little bit deeper to determine whether or not somebody's actually an employer or an employee, and whether they are entitled to minimum wage. Okay, so I've just given you sort of three ways that an employer can commit wage theft. And if you look back for some more videos, we will explain a little bit more in detail about some of the things that we talked about today. So if you have any questions, you can always go back to our website. We will post these videos there, and they'll be on YouTube. And then you can always call our office or email us at fontenot@fivepointslaw.com, or calling 205-564-9005 to get more information about wage theft.